Ladies and gentlemen, kings and queens in the making, I want you to imagine your mind as a luxury high-rise penthouse. Top floor, skyline views, marble floors, gold-trimmed walls. Now imagine you're letting anyone just walk in and hang out. No rent, no security, no respect for the space. They put their muddy boots on your white sofa. They eat greasy food and leave the wrappers on your counter. They open your fridge, take what they want, and criticize the decor while they're doing it. That's exactly what many of us are doing with our focus. We're renting out our mental real estate, prime property, to people who haven't earned the right to occupy it. You see, years ago, I had a revelation. I was in a season where I was giving everybody access. Everyone had a key. I was listening to doubters, comparing my timeline to somebody else's highlight reel, checking my phone like it held my purpose in its notifications. I couldn't figure out why I felt tired, scattered, confused. And then it hit me. I was paying attention to everything but me. Let me break it down plain. When you give away your focus, you give away your future. Because focus is the engine that drives momentum. Focus is what turns small, consistent action into unstoppable force. But the problem is, you're spending it like it's infinite, like it grows on trees, when really, it's one of the most limited resources you have. Focus is not about staring at something longer. It's about saying no to everything that doesn't align with your assignment. Think of it like a magnifying glass. You can wave it in the sunlight all day and never make fire. But when you focus it, when the light converges on one tiny spot, boom, ignition, heat, flame, power. That's what happens when you stop scattering your attention and start focusing on your own growth, your goals, your God-given gift. And here's the truth that might sting a little. Most people are distracted by people who are not even watching them. You're trying to impress people who wouldn't notice if you disappeared tomorrow. You're waiting on validation from folks who can't even validate their own life. I'm telling you, 2025 is not the year to keep explaining yourself to small minds. This is the year you go silent, you go deep, and you go inward. Because the transformation you're praying for doesn't start with the crowd. It starts in the closet, in the lab, in the late nights when no one sees you grinding but God. That's how empires are built. Focus isn't flashy. It's not always Instagrammable. It won't get applause, but it will get results. And I'd rather be quietly consistent than loudly confused. So I dare you, in this season, protect your focus like your life depends on it. Because it does. You don't need more motivation, you need elimination. Eliminate the noise, eliminate the access, eliminate the expectation to perform for an audience that has no role in your destiny. And when you do, when you finally reclaim your focus, you'll be amazed at how quickly everything changes. The money, the clarity, the peace, the opportunities. All of it starts with your ability to say, this year, I'm not giving my mind to just anybody. This year, I'm investing it in me. You ever walk into a room and the loudest person is doing all the talking, puffing their chest, name dropping, bragging about deals that haven't closed and victories they haven't won? They dominate the air like it's their job to be heard. But let me tell you something. The loudest voice in the room is rarely the most powerful. That's not strength. That's insecurity looking for applause. That's noise trying to cover up a lack of clarity. Now, I've been in rooms with billionaires, with kingdom-minded entrepreneurs, with generals in the faith and giants in the marketplace. And you know what they all have in common? They don't need to talk to prove who they are. They walk in the room and their presence speaks. They carry the kind of stillness that makes people lean in. As I'm talking about, executive silence, divine restraint, kingdom composure. See, silence is not weakness. Silence is self-mastery. It's when you've done so much internal work that You don't need to announce every plan, every move, every intention, because let me tell you, real power doesn't beg to be noticed. Real power doesn't chase attention. Real power moves in wisdom, not impulse. I remember a season where I felt I had to explain everything, my goals, my methods, even my vision. I wanted people to understand me. I wanted support. But every time I opened my mouth too early, I gave someone an invitation to doubt me, to discourage me, and then I learned something priceless. When God gives you a vision, he's not obligated to give everyone else the explanation. Sometimes your silence is not just strategy, it's spiritual protection. There are people in your life right now who are only in agreement with the version of you that stays small. The moment you start sharing the next level, their insecurities wake up. They'll tell you to be realistic, slow down, don't get your hopes up. And if you're not careful, their fear becomes your voice. So I stopped sharing everything. I started building in silence. I started winning without announcing. I started praying more than I posted. So I started thanking God before the breakthrough showed up. And you know what happened? Peace entered the room, clarity followed, momentum came knocking. Not because I shouted, but because I stayed grounded. See, the enemy loves a noisy believer, a noisy builder, a noisy dreamer, because noise is easy to manipulate. But silence is dangerous. Silence is when you hear God the clearest. Silence is where strategies are born. Silence is where confidence is built, because you're no longer outsourcing your identity to people's opinions. I want you to understand this. Your quiet season is not punishment, it's preparation. The world teaches you to broadcast everything. God teaches you to guard it. Some seeds need to stay underground before they're strong enough to break the surface. So the next time you feel like you need to prove something, pause. The next time someone doubts you and you want to clap back, pause. The next time you feel the urge to post your progress just to get a reaction, pause. Remember this, silence is not the absence of action, it's the evidence of maturity. It means you trust your process. It means you don't need confirmation to keep walking. It means you'd rather be effective than impressive. Because when you're truly focused, truly aligned, truly walking in divine purpose, you don't shout. And when you move in silence, the results do all the talking. There was a time in my life when I disappeared. I didn't make an announcement. I didn't write a goodbye post. I just went silent. No speaking engagements, no new content, no calls returned unless they were mission critical. People thought something was wrong. Is Myron okay? They'd ask. Is he going through something? Yes, I was going through something. I was going through a transformation. See, what most people don't realize is this. True breakthroughs don't happen in the spotlight. They happen in the shadows, behind closed doors, in the late nights and early mornings, in the pages of books no one sees you reading, in the prayers nobody hears but heaven. That's where greatness is forged. Everybody wants the stage, but very few want the solitude. Everybody wants the platform, but nobody wants the pressure of private development. But let me be real with you. You can't pour from an empty cup. And you sure can't lead a kingdom if your internal world is in chaos. That's why building yourself in the quiet is not optional, it's essential. I remember one night during that season of isolation, I was in my study, no music, no noise, just me, a journal, a Bible, and a dream I hadn't yet figured out how to carry. And I heard something deep in my spirit. Let me rebuild you in private so I can reveal you in power. That changed everything. So I started treating my development like a full-time job. I wasn't just taking time off. I was in the gym, mentally, spiritually, emotionally. I was reworking my belief systems. I was confronting old habits. I was strengthening the muscles no one claps for. Discipline, consistency, humility. And here's what I found. When you build in the quiet, you become dangerous. Not because you're flashy, but because you're fortified. You stop needing applause. You stop fearing opposition. You stop shrinking when others shine. Because your value no longer comes from how they see you. It comes from what you've built within. See, when a tree is growing, it doesn't scream every time it stretches another inch toward the sun. It just grows quietly, consistently. And when the roots go deep, when they've taken hold underground, that's when the fruit starts to show, not before. If you try to bear fruit before you've established your roots, the first storm will take you out. That's why you've got to let God work on you in the dark. Because the dark is not a delay, it's the development zone. That's where he cuts away what can't go with you. That's where he exposes the cracks in your character so he can pour concrete where there was once sand. That's where he refines your vision, deepens your discernment, and sharpens your spirit. And let me tell you, when you come out of that quiet season, people won't recognize you. They'll say, you sound different. You carry something. You've changed. And they're right, because you didn't waste the silence. You worked in it. So don't despise that season when no one is calling your name. Don't resent the days when it feels like no one's watching. That's the best time to build. That's where self-respect is born. That's where true wealth starts, not in your wallet, but in your wisdom. That's where purpose becomes crystal clear. Not because someone handed you a blueprint, but because you found the courage to look in the mirror and ask, what kind of man am I becoming when no one's looking? Because listen, when you invest in yourself in silence, the ROI doesn't just show up in your bank account. It shows up in how you walk, how you lead, how you love, how you speak, how you show up in every room. The world doesn't need more noise, it needs more depth. And depth is only born in quiet places. You don't need validation, you need preparation. And if you're in that quiet season right now, I came to tell you, you're not behind, you're not forgotten, you're being refined, so lean in. Double down, keep showing up, keep growing when no one sees it. Because soon the fruit will speak for itself. We are living in the noisiest generation in human history. Everywhere you turn, someone's talking, someone's posting, someone's preaching success they haven't even practiced. And if you're not careful, if you don't guard your gates, you'll start confusing volume with value. You'll start mistaking visibility for wisdom. You'll start letting noise become your mentor. And before you know it, your vision is no longer yours. It's a collage of what everybody else thinks you should be doing. Let me tell you something straight. Your destiny cannot survive if you're constantly distracted. There was a time when I was consuming everything: podcasts, courses, opinions, influencers, experts. I thought I was learning, but what I was really doing was drowning. I wasn't making decisions. I was collecting data and sitting in indecision. I wasn't being still to hear God. I was busy trying to hear everyone else. And you know what happened? I started moving slower. I started doubting myself. I stopped trusting the voice inside me, the same voice that led me through my toughest battles. I gave the wheel to people who didn't know my destination. And that's when I realized something had to change. I had to unplug. I had to choose discernment over distraction. Because not every voice deserves access to your attention. Not every post deserves your scroll. Not every trend is aligned with your timing. Just because it's loud doesn't mean it's right. Just because it's popular doesn't mean it's purposeful. You have to know who you are so well that you don't need the algorithm to tell you how to feel about yourself. You have to guard your energy like your life depends on it, because it does. Every time you let distraction in, you're delaying your assignment. Let me ask you, how much of your God-given focus are you wasting on other people's timeline? You're getting sidetracked by someone else's highlight reel, comparing your beginning to their middle and wondering why you feel stuck. You're chasing strategies that weren't designed for your season. You're adopting standards from people who aren't even living the advice they give. And here's the hard truth. Most of what you see isn't real. It's performance. It's projection. It's marketing. But real purpose, real success, it's quiet, it's slow, it's messy, and it doesn't always come with likes, shares, or a viral moment. So you got to decide, do you want to look successful or become successful? Because one requires noise, the other demands focus. You need discernment in this season like never before. You need to be able to say, this may be good, but it's not for me. You need the strength to say no to what's trending so you can say yes to what's true. And discernment doesn't come from scrolling. It comes from stillness, from time in prayer, from reflection, from asking, what is God saying to me? When you cut through the noise, when you get still enough to hear that whisper from heaven, that's when clarity comes. That's when peace enters. That's when strategy downloads. And that's when your steps become ordered, not because you're following the crowd, but because you're following the calling. You don't need to be everywhere. You don't need to consume everything. You just need to be in alignment. Because when you're aligned with your purpose, your assignment, your creator, distraction doesn't stand a chance. You stop chasing shiny things. You stop running other people's races. You stop trying to keep up with a pace that was never yours to begin with. And that's when you start building something eternal. So in this age of noise, let your power be in your focus. Let your clarity be louder than your content. Let your discernment lead louder than your desire for attention. Because success is not about being seen, it's about becoming someone worth following, even when no one's watching.